Greetings, Commanders. This is Commander Mk3, and it's a fight I wanted to try for a long time. The fight is taking on a Thargoid Hydra in a Viper Mk3. It is not the first time that this fight has been done. Commander Kitty Burns had done this fight quite a while ago, and quite successfully at that back in the day. She did, however, do it while taking a pretty significant amount of damage and spending a good amount of time repairing. And that's not at least my personal fighting style. So I decided to see if I could try something different, which is to take my Viper Mk3, which flies in a generally standard configuration of 1 medium and 2 small Gauss, in addition to a flak launcher, with 2 serious pre-engineered heat sinks, and a pretty standard complement of internal modules, including light wave alloys with heavy duty and deep plating armor, including an overcharged power plant with monstered experimental, because the Viper is particularly power hungry, especially with enhanced performance thrusters, which have dirty drive tuning and drive distributors, which is also pretty standard for the Viper Mk3. I've downsized the frame shift drive as I'm doing in system combat, and I don't really need to jump anywhere with this ship. I'm just undocking my carrier, going out for combat, and coming back to the ship. I'm using a standard light wave life support. I'm using a weapon-focused power distributor with super conduits, which some folks would say is an unconventional choice. But on the Viper Mk3, you absolutely don't want to boost while in combat. You boost way, way, way too fast, and consequently, you want to avoid boosting altogether. Since you want to avoid boosting altogether, using a weapon-focused power distributor allows me to keep my heat spikes lower and avoid additional incoming damage, which is why I made this choice. If you don't worry too much about heat spikes, a charge-enhanced power distributor is probably the better generalist choice. Sensors are light wave in this case, which is unconventional. Typically in Thargoid combat, you want to use long-range scanners, but for what I'm trying to do, and we'll get it in a moment, lightweight scanners actually provided quite a bit of benefit. And finally, I have a class 2 fuel tank for 4 tons of fuel. I could have downsized the fuel tank to just have 2 tons of fuel, but then you get into timing issues with regards to how long you have in the fight before you run out of fuel, and it's something I didn't want to worry about, so I left the default one here. The interesting thing of this build is when we move over to optional internals. As you can see, they are exactly none. This ship has no optional internals whatsoever. As a result, it has no repairs. It has a meager 180 armor hit points, which, trust me, is not a lot if you're going up on 1-1 versus a Hydra. But, and this is the counter side of this particular build, it is fiendishly fast for a combat ship. Not only is it fiendishly fast, but it is also the ship that has the highest acceleration in the game by quite a margin. As a result, this ship accelerates to its boost speed of 700 and something, 729.30, as you can see here, in an instant, which is not all that necessary anyway in combat, but more importantly, the ship is able to change direction at a rate that pretty much no other ship is able to do. The other extremely interesting capability of this ship is its ability to, on 4 engine and pips, fly at 584 meters per second in reverse key, flying away from the interceptor and the swarm. This allows it to do something pretty unique in Thargoid combat, and that is, it allows you to dictate range also against the swarm, which is something that it's practically impossible on almost any other build, since the swarm will fly up to 500 when it's zigzagging towards you, and even faster when it's flying straight at you. So having a ship that can reverse key up over 500 is extremely uncommon. Having a ship that can reverse key significantly over 500 is practically unheard of in Thargoid interceptor combat. Not only does it go to that really remarkable speed, but even when you switch to its combat configuration of 1.5 pips in engine, and the reason it's 1.5 is because you do need that half a pip in system, otherwise you will not you will not be able to have enough system capacitive power to fire all your heat sinks. Even if you are in that capacity, your blue zone velocity is extremely remarkable at what is roughly 250 to 310, which makes it incredible agile ship that can accelerate like pretty much no other in the game, and is also extremely fragile with its meager 810 armor hit points. So how will it go? It's something we're about to find out. Fighting in small ships is very different than fighting in mediums, and certainly a lot different than fighting in large ships. What you lack in DPS, you need to make up in agility. Speed, as you will see, is also an asset in this fight. Very few ships can dictate range to the swarm, as you need an unboosted speed of over 500 meters per second, which thankfully this Viper has. This fight begins conservatively by starting with a flakking of the first swarm session. You'll see me do something very odd in this phase. You'll see me toggling silent running on and off. You'll notice as I toggle silent running on, the swarm flies away from me, and as I toggle silent running back off, the swarm starts flying back towards me. As it flies back towards me, it will re-roll its formation, which means I can re-roll swarm formations that are the dreaded ring into something that is a lot easier to flag down, such as a spiral or a ball. Throughout this fight, I will use this little trick to make flagging the swarm go faster. Know that even without this trick, the swarm is really no threat at all, as I am faster than the swarm in reverse key. All I would need to do is keep shooting and control range as I see fit. The ideal velocity I'm going after is 435 meters per second, as that is the velocity at which the interceptor approaches me when the swarm is far from me. And when the swarm closes up, I will accelerate it up to 500 so that I'm able to keep it at range without it shooting me at all. Here what I'm doing is I'm starting a pre-synth of heat sinks, which is not strictly necessary in this fight, but it's a bit of a habit that I have in small ships, as having that extra sync can sometimes be the difference between a run that you can salvage and a run that fails. Now for this first orbit insertion, the Viper's acceleration is unique, as it allows you to have what is normally a steep insertion that would require a boosted orbit to sustain, which you can instead form just by continuously thrusting forward and adjusting the lateral thrusters as you go. Man, this ship is a beauty to fly. Now for the most notable bug introduced in Update 15. Note the interceptor is not shooting at me at all. That is because I'm moving so fast relatively to its gimbal angle that it's not able to get a lock on me. If it is not able to get a lock on me, it's not going to fire upon me. So long as my orbit doesn't stall, the interceptor will not fire a shot. While this seems to make the fight trivial, you do still need to orbit very precisely, and as a result, it is not as easy as this fight may make it seem. But it is easier than it used to be, primarily because if the interceptor isn't shooting at you, the interceptor will never turn to rearm, and as a result, it's much easier to orbit a Hydra, which has a notoriously difficult and short rearm cycle that you'll need to chase otherwise. What the ship does make trivial is this lightning chase lays. After the first heart is destroyed, the interceptor will chase you at 450 meters per second to zap you with its lightning special attack. However, because I'm going a lot faster at 450 in my maximum unboosted speed, I can just accelerate and decelerate as I see fit, and dictate range and keep it pretty much exactly where I want it, which is just above the 3 kilometer range of its cannon, so that when the swarm deploys, I'll be ready to start flakking it down. This is also a good time to restock on heat sinks and check my ammo. This is a rare fight where I do use premium ammo. While it is possible to do this fight also with basic ammo, the time on target goes from 46 seconds to 84 seconds. In short, it is incredibly difficult to do this fight on basic ammo. Now, I'd normally skip the swarm in this phase of the video because there's nothing special about flacking down the swarm. It's not particularly challenging, it's not particularly interesting visually either. However, I did want to show you how this ship is able to dictate range, and as a result is able to keep the swarm at range and shoot at it for the most part while it's flying straight at you, and even when it starts waving in and out, it doesn't really ever have a chance to get close. Once the swarm is down, we'll skip straight to part number 2. In the meanwhile, you may notice the resting heat of this Viper Mk3 is 34%, which is pretty high, owing to its overcharged power plant that is necessary on Viper's notoriously undersized power plant to begin with. In the current situation where interceptors lose lock on you if they cannot see you by heat signature, however, having a high signature from a heat standpoint is actually desirable in a fight like this, as it will make it less likely for the interceptor to just turn away and disappear. Like all flag phases, the easiest time to shoot down a swarm is when it's flying straight at you between 7 and 4 kilometers. Even if the flag launcher says it's out of range, you can disregard that. Because flag shots don't inherit the velocity of your ship, they effectively fly straight at the swarm that is flying towards you at 500 meters per second. The effective range of flag is about 7 kilometers in a situation where the swarm is flying straight at you, which is much longer than its paper stats might otherwise suggest. Once the swarm does go down, it becomes just a waiting game. The ship has no ability whatsoever to accelerate the decay of the Hydra's shield, and as a result you have to wait out the 5 minutes and 19 seconds that the shield of the Hydra naturally takes to decay. You don't want to wait too long, however. As you wait a few more minutes, it will trigger its enrage timer, and then it will constantly spawn swarms, which, with a ship this fragile, is not something you generally want to deal with. The second heart of a Hydra is always the hardest, and that's true not just for Hydras, but for interceptors in general. It's almost tanky as the first, and now lightning is active, so you have to be careful about not getting too close. On this third heart, I make a small mistake. I am not cold within 3 kilometers when the interceptor ends up its scream phase. As a result, I am detected and the interceptor fires caustics at me. I am a lot faster than caustic missiles, so avoiding them is no issue. However, it is something that should not have happened. this is the error that costs me the perfect run. I let it get too close to me, my orbit stalls. As a result, I'm forced to boost away, and then somehow miraculously I'm able to turn and land that last shot and break that heart. If I didn't land that shot, this run might have failed entirely. And there you go.
With just 180 hull hit points, I believe this is the most fragile ship to take down a Hydra solo ever. It is also a single hit away from being an entirely hitless run, which, considering that it's the first serious fight I do with the Viper Mk3, isn't too shabby. And boy, that was fun. Finally, as a reminder, if you like these videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it supports me making more of these. Wing up and strike, commanders, and glory to mankind.